Hi, this is Ken and Michelle Bass.
And you're listening to the Resilient Parenting Podcast.
Before we begin our next episode, a few words to parents of a different sort.
Yes, it has been brought to my attention that not everyone who listens to the Resilient Parenting Podcast are parents of humans. So this is just a quick shout out to all of our fur baby parents. We see you. We appreciate you. We are one of you. We actually have our own that are quite often a part of our podcast. So
Well, at least one of the cats is.
one of the cats.
The dogs are hiding in a kennel somewhere.
Yes, we do that, and so you can take bits and pieces of what we talk about during the episodes, and I'm sure it would relate to your fur babies, except for us putting our dogs in the kennel. Maybe you don't want to do that. For those of you that have human babies, we frown upon that. But anyway, you have a joke or something. You have a comment?
What you just said about it relating to your fur babies, this next episode will not relate to your fur babies more than likely. Although I guess maybe you'll see when we get to the episode. But in the episode...
It can totally relate.
In the upcoming episode, I referred to something my father and I talked about once. And you'll hear me say a certain word that I don't normally say in public. You don't remember?
Mm-mm.
Okay, wait. You have to hear it in the episode. But something else my father said other than what we were going to be referring to. He told me once that if you keep procrastinating, you will never amount to anything.
Oh.
And I said, Dad, just you wait.
How's that working out for you?
Still waiting. And today we're chatting with Kayla Jones, LPC, CST. We'll look at those full words later, right? And with Jeff and Kayla Jones Counseling, PLLC. Lots of letters there. How you doing, Kayla?
We're doing good. Jeff and I have a joke that we're LPCs, LADCs, LMNOPs, and it's just a fun little joke we have.
I love that so much. And so I need to say that are you in Oklahoma City?
I am in the Oklahoma City metro area, but I live in like a smaller suburb of Oklahoma City.
Okay. So I can't even remember. Do you remember what year we met when we did the Making Sense of Your Worth training?
It was, I think, April 2023.
Oh, and wait, it wasn't even Making Sense of Your Worth. It was buildings.
Freedom Within. It was the second round.
Yeah. Okay. And we met and we were just talking before we started about how sometimes in life you meet someone where it feels like you've always known them. And that was Kayla. For me, and we just connected and we've been connected ever since. And so, and you are an artist and you're so talented, and I've been wanting to get you on our podcast for a really long time because you just have so much great information, and and now you are a certified sex therapist, which is amazing.
Oh, that's what the CST stood for.
Yes. Yeah, funny story. I actually started my training 1 month before I met Michelle.
Oh, wow.
And so I started my extra trainings that I needed to get and extra supervision I needed to get this additional certification March 2023. So
wow. So this is like full circle.
Yeah. So I actually been 1 month in to officially certified, but I put in 250 hours since then on these extracurricular trainings and supervisions. So it's been a wild ride.
And so congratulations. That is a big darn deal. And we're super excited for you to come on our podcast and talk about what you've learned. You suggested for me to look at the book Shameless Parenting by Dr. Tina Shermer Sellers. Did I say that right?
Shermer Sellers.
It's everything you need to raise shame-free, confident kids and heal your shame too. And I Love this book so much. So I don't know where you want to start, but I'm going to just say, take it away, Kayla.
Yes. So what I was thinking is, since you're doing resilient parenting and topics about parenting pieces, I historically have been and still am a TBRI practitioner. I have been since 2017. I worked with a local nonprofit organization in Oklahoma City where I was doing foster and adoptive care with my TBRI training. And then it's blossomed into working with attachment styles, which then has a beautiful blend with the sex therapy. Because I'm sure there's listeners like, what does this have to do with resilient parenting?
Mhm.
Right. But in reality, for a long time, probably since my late adolescence, I've realized there's been a huge gap in my comprehensive sex education, and partially because of the purity culture, partially because it just isn't prioritized in the education system. And so I remember I was actually like 21 when I started my I was working on my bachelor's degree. I knew I wanted to be a therapist, but I was like, I want to be a sex therapist. And so even before I became a TBI practitioner, this is something I wanted to do. And so what I thought we could do is blend the idea of how can I help my kids with their sexual side of life, not just their attachment style. And I mean that in the most holistic way possible of how can I help raise well-rounded individuals that can communicate their needs, know about consent, understand their own preferences, while teaching them how to empower themselves, just like the TBRI principles, right? And so that's where I was kind of thinking we could go is talking about what is comprehensive sex education? What are some pieces that parents should be aware of while raising kids, bio or not. And then maybe some strategies to help with maintaining that in different ages and stages of their parenting journey.
Perfect.
Hmm.
Let's
Yeah?
do it. I
Okay.
love it.
So I'm still kind of new to this. And so I've done a couple podcasts before, and what I like to say is this is what I believe today. Because as you know, we're all learning and growing. And sometimes we learn something, we're like, we love it. And then later on, we realize there's like different ways to talk about it or even different ways to think about it. And so this is
Absolutely.
whatever you're hearing today is where I'm at today in my journey. Okay. That's for future Kayla, in case I look back, I'm like, oh my God, why did I think that? Right. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I understand that more than I'd like to admit.
I've learned along the way. It's like I think about early TBRI Kayla, early 2017s, pre-parent. I'm actually a parent of an 8-year-old, and she was in my belly when I was at my practitioner training. And I think about the way I thought about parenting versus the way I think about it now. And I'm like, oh, I said so many things that I would say differently today, you know? So,
So true.
so I do that for myself, but also for listeners of like just acknowledging we grow and we learn, and sometimes we have these proclamations, and sometimes they're even different later on. So, anyways, what I will do today is I actually brought a little bit of my library that comes from like my book library that comes from the Shameless Parenting book that I'm sure you'll put in the show notes. And I
Mhm.
want to specify that Dr. Tina Shermer Sellers was actually my ASECT sex therapy supervisor. So ASECT is the corporation, the International Committee for Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. And so she is a certified supervisor for ASECT, and I've been using her for the last 2 years in my supervision. So she has been wonderful in the comprehensive sex education piece, parenting piece, attachment piece, while also blending that level of education together. So just wanted to let you know about that. But how do you guys feel about starting with identifying what is sexual shame?
Mm.
Okay.
Did you guys know that the first shame that a human body feels is sexual shame?
I did not know that.
It doesn't surprise me, actually.
Yes. So before I dive into the operational definition, I want to point out that when you learn about the human culture society from a psychology standpoint, we understand that humans are biopsychosocial beings. There's like that kind of triangle vibe. But when you really look at it, we're actually five things. We're biopsychosocial, spiritual, and sexual. And those two pieces, spiritual and sexual pieces, are often ignored or not looked at in the education system in trainings and continuing education credits and even parenting strategies. Like we don't think about those two pieces a lot. Living in Oklahoma, I'm in the Bible Belt, so the spiritual pieces are very much there. The religious pieces are very much there, but when it comes to blending all of that together, that's very segregated. It's very compartmentalized. And so it's not a holistic teaching or on the spiritual side of things. So I think, I was learning about shame a lot around the time Michelle and I met, and I learned, I started my self-worth journey and understanding my shame journey really in 2018. It was eye-opening because as a parent, I am going to hand either self-worth or shame or both to my kids. They are naturally going to inherit anything that I haven't touched or touched. And it's a struggle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so learning about that, actually sexual shame is the first thing humans and kids and babies experience, I think it's huge. One of the pieces of information that I learned that was a shock to me is that there was no operational definition of sexual shame until 2017.
2017.
Yeah, so no record, no um, identified course or curriculum or anything about sexual shame until
Ah,
2017. So
that's surprising.
I know. And it's kind of long and wordy, so I'd like to break it down into some steps for you. Sexual shame is defined as a visceral feeling of humiliation and disgust towards one's own body and identity as a sexual being. So let's start with that first. I have like three more sentences to go. But what this means is, if you think about it, the first thing we do when a baby is born, well, one of the first things we do when a baby is born, depending on who you are, is cover up their private parts.
Mm-hmm.
We immediately wrap it up and hide it. Now, it makes sense in a hygienic sense because they can't control their bowel movements or their urine or anything like that. But there's often this other nonverbal or even verbalized preference on why it's covered up, right? They're your private parts. And those parts are actually related and, as we know, connected to our sexual side of self.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a visceral feeling of humiliation and disgust. Ooh, cover that up. No, nobody should touch. No, you shouldn't look at it. You shouldn't touch it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
being reinforced over and over and over again. And of course, if you've ever been around a toddler, you know that that is very much something you're constantly kind of not tapping, hitting the hand on, but
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to control. So it influences a belief of feeling abnormal, inferior, unworthy. And this feeling can be internalized, but manifest in interpersonal relationships, which has a negative impact on trust, communication, and physical intimacy. And so all of these things have kind of a ripple effect. Unless somebody along the way is debunking the lie that those are just body parts and they're beautiful and they're wonderful and they have a purpose, just like your finger, just like your elbow, just like your lips, just like your hair, just like your ears, a penis, a vulva, whatever is the
Mm-hmm.
same. But
Yeah.
oftentimes we don't.
Mm-mm.
And so, because of that, those pieces of our body are often not talked about and not explored in a way that we can when it comes to the rest of our body.
Yeah.
And so it does impact our intimacy. So
It's
the
so
rest of
true.
it, yeah, the rest of it says sexual shame develops across lifespan with in interactions with interpersonal relationships, one's culture and society, and subsequent critical self-appraisal. So that continual feedback loop. Depending on if you're not talked like, well, there's two variations. You're either talked about it a lot of don't touch it, don't share it, don't show it,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, or nothing is said at all, right? There's often a
Mm-hmm.
lot of neglect around talking about those parts. Then that feedback loop is going to continue in whatever direction it's going. But either way, the messages are kind of the same as like, this is a no-no area,
Mm-hmm.
and in my language, I'm a sinner for having it, right?
Mm.
Um, this could be maybe tied into generational things too, over time, because I am a little bit older than Michelle. Uh, and my childhood was spent in the late 50s and 60s. And this story I've told Michelle before, but I was an only child, still am, and had no peers really telling me anything. So everything I knew, and I came from in the Bible Belt too, raised in Tennessee. My parents were very, very devout. And I didn't find out anything about sex or other body parts or anything else until later. I remember my dad driving me to school one time and said, Kenny, do you know the difference between men and women? In my mind, I only know one thing. In my mind, I said, yeah, women have boobies. I didn't say that out loud. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the other body parts. Nothing was ever said to me.
You
Nothing was
only
ever explained.
had.
That was my whole talk with my dad. And he just asked me if I knew the difference. I said, yes, that was it. And I didn't learn different till, some peers a little bit later on told me about it.
Yeah. Your story sounds like so many variations of stories that I've heard along the way. My own, I was growing up in adolescence, late 90s, early 2000s, and the purity culture was huge. And so all I was taught was about abstinent when it comes to sex related things. But there was a lot of nonverbal cues around just body shame in general, right? So I think it's interesting, and I think it depends on where you live and the era that you grew up in, because what I've heard through my trainings is that the 60s and 70s, depending on the area of the states that you lived in, there was actually a better curriculum for sex education than ever than even today.
Wow.
There was more openness, more accuracy, things like that. And so I'll talk a little bit later if we have time around like when that changed and what kind of impacted that change because it's very historical in our political environment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the last part of this definition is the fear and uncertainty related to one's power, making decisions, including safety decisions, sexual encounters, along with internalized judgment. So I don't know if you remember how you felt about not knowing, or if you felt confused, or if it was just normal not to think about. But it ultimately didn't set you up for that layer of relationship later on. You had to build that. And I don't know if you did, but most of us that have to build it on our own fumble our way through and often get hurt by it or exploited by it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just want to quote this definition comes from Dr. Noel Clark from 2017. And I can even provide like if Michelle, you'd like a copy of the shame definition, you can have it. So because it's a long little write-up of what sexual shame is. But really what it's saying, it's a visceral feeling of not feeling good about your body,
Mm-hmm.
not feeling good about who you are as a sexual being, and how it impacts how you relate to the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a lot of unconscious, subconscious, unspoken influence that
Yeah.
I think we even see today. We see a lot today because I don't know about you, but I actually heard a statistic that Gen Z is having less sex than any other generation.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. So there's lots of variations between generations of how these sexual shame impacts are happening. So there's a lot of other factors to why Gen Z is different today than other generations. But yeah, that's one of the things. They're having less romantic relationships and they're having less sex in general.
Wow. You were talking about like experiences, and I grew up more in the 70s, 80s, and I was told things that I still think in my head, like sit like a lady. Sit like a lady, don't have your legs open, spread out, sit like a lady. And the thing I remember hearing was you play, you pay. And I was like, I pay? What? I play? What? What do I do?
As
Confusing.
opposed to you pay first, then you play. Oh, no, kidding, 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 kidding.
I like the jokes.
Well, you'll get them here. Yeah, that's just kind of how we roll. But Ken,
What?
Don't
You
sexually
set me
shame
up.
your co-host.
okay, don't sexually, you can pay for it if you want.
Oh, I have been for 27 years.
This is not turning out well for you. I'm just saying. Kayla's like, what did I get myself into?
I'm a good
Okay.
observer.
Kidding,
We
kidding,
we are
kidding.
we are we are we are getting back. Get focused, Ken.
Okay.
Okay. We're good. We're back.
Okay. Yes. So hopefully that, I'm here for discussion. And so if any viewer or listener is out there like, I want to know more about how sexual shame has impacted me, I'd love the idea of someone reaching out and being like, I want to talk about this because I'm
Hmm.
here. If I'm working on, in one of my missions is to help just reduce shame in general, we
Hmm.
have to talk about this piece too. And that's
Yeah.
one of my passions in this CST certification to be able to do in a very safe and loving way that I don't want to add to that shame in particular. And I don't want to
Hmm.
ignore it either. So, so I have some, before we wrap up today, I'll have some insights of how parents can help with their own shame triggers and how to help build a less of a sexual shame impact on their kids and that they have control over because ultimately we don't have the full control, just like we know with shame in general. If we live in the world, things are going to come our way.
And Kayla, it reminds me that we do have the feature on our podcast where you can reach out to us on the contact us, text us. I can't remember what it says. But if you have questions or wonderings for Kayla, if Kayla is open to this, I'm totally putting her on the spot. But maybe we could have another episode where we bring those questions to you and then you can address them to help those listeners, but also all the other listeners that probably have the same question.
So this is like a little bit of my 21-year-old dream. What it got me to this space of wanting to do this was secretly watching the Sunday night sex show with Sue Johansson from BBC. She was a Canadian mom, old gray-haired lady
Okay.
that you can watch some. She has a documentary out about her life. She's passed since then, but she opened my eyes to this. This is what I want. And so this
Mm.
idea of being like answering questions or being a talk radio show host has been something I've always wanted to do. So
All right,
yes,
let's
yes,
make her
yes.
dream. Let's make her dream a reality, people. Send in those questions and we'll get another episode just for you. Okay.
Um,
So what should we move on to?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the dynamics of what is comprehensive sex education. Because when you think about sex education, I'm sure people think, okay, puberty, body development, the changes that happen during puberty,
Mhm.
sexual relationships when it comes to romantic partners or people that we engage in sexually. And then I don't know what else, STIs,
Yeah,
safe
healthy
sex.
relationships would
You're right.
be in there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about that because actually, comprehensive sex education should start as early as kindergarten, if not before.
Okay,
And so
stop.
I'd like to explore that.
Stop. Can you say that again for the people in the back?
Comprehensive sex education actually should start as early as kindergarten and maybe even before.
I have never heard that before. I mean, I'm looking at the book and it starts at birth and all and on, but that is a concept that I think is going to be really new to a lot of listeners. Why
Yes.
is that? Why do we
Well,
start so soon?
right. Well, I'm not thinking puberty and penis in vagina kind of talks, right? I'm
Okay.
talking about learning about the body, learning
Okay.
about consent, healthy touch, social and self-awareness. So my list for kindergarten through third grade, so let's talk about like 5 through 9-ish,
Okay.
according to the American grade standards. We're working on recognizing emotions in self and others, resolving conflicts, boundary setting, listening skills, the ability to say no, healthy touch, soft touch, painful touch, body anatomy, and consent are all things that need to be happening from when they're building relationships with you all the way up until third grade.
Absolutely. We're talking like not forcing your child to kiss Uncle George at the Christmas party,
Yes.
right?
And the
Okay.
reason this is so important is because if we tell them their no doesn't matter, then their no doesn't matter later on.
Right. Okay.
And that creates confusion,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
And so the Shameless Parenting, because of time, the Shameless Parenting book has good resources on what kind of books to read for parents and to read to the children. There's ages and stages of what developmentally to talk about. and what's normal for their developmental cycles, right? So if touching their private parts is happening around potty training, normal, there's ways to talk about it that isn't shaming, but we can talk about it in other ways. So I would highly recommend if you're interested in really beefing up your skills, the Shameless Parenting book would be a great buy. It's on Amazon really cheap.
It is, and I do wonder if we could have another episode. I'm just thinking ahead of going through some of the stages and have that be a separate episode. And then, we also talked, I'm like totally signing you up for all these episodes. Another episode to answer questions. Today you've brought up just the basic idea around like the shame that comes with it. Is there, since we're limited on time, just thinking about how as parents, how our shame impacts how we bring these topics up. Because I mean, even just bringing some of the things up, I noticed like a reaction in my stomach, or like moments of like thinking about like parenting, things with my now grown kids, or things that were told to me when I was younger that still have impact. So how do parents navigate that?
Well, I think it's having conversations with people that you feel safe with about these
Mhm.
hard topics, right? If you were raised to not talk about it, we have to teach ourselves how to talk about it. And I wouldn't practice with our kids, right? I would practice with adults, hire or meet with somebody like me that has some training here.
Mhm.
Look at YouTube videos of parents that are doing positive sex education,
Mhm.
reading the Shameless Parenting book and reading the library list that it recommends. But normalizing your own shame triggers. Speak to the fact that I didn't learn this and I feel uncomfortable around it.
Something I saw in the Shameless Parenting book a little bit earlier when I was going through it was it jumped out at me. Instead of having one big talk with the kids, you need to have little talks. Instead of like one 100-minute talk, have little minute talks to the kids all through their life.
Thank you, Ken. That is one of my favorite nuggets is having one 100, not 101-minute conversations
Yeah.
instead of one 100-minute conversation. And I actually have been practicing that with my 8-year-old with everything when it comes to friends, homework, chores, political stuff, religious stuff, sexual stuff, puberty. She's very well known about what's happening in puberty.
Mhm.
She is my little bit of my guinea pig. But yeah, having 101-minute conversations. And the way I would talk to parents about that is when you notice the eyes glaze
Mhm.
or the looking away, you say, "Are you done?" And if they're saying, then be done, right? And so, I like the gentle startup method from the Gottman Institute. We're like, hey, I want to have a conversation about this. Would you be, and asking for permission, would you be okay if we talked about it? I also love having conversations in the car because we
Mm.
don't have to force to look at each other. I also created a hard conversations card for me and my kid, and maybe this is, I can send you a picture of an example, so that if she wants to talk to me about something, she can give me the hard conversation cards, and that sets me in a place where I can listen and not be reactive parent or judgmental parent or disciplinarian, right?
Mhm.
And I can do it vice versa with her too. So I might even hand her the hard conversation of like, hey, sweet girl, we need to talk about boobies and bras, where I'm noticing something, we're kind of smelly. We need to go talk about this, right? And talk about how to take care of our body and things like that. And so we can even talk a little bit more about that another time. But I think it's just, I love the 101-minute conversation mentality because I think one, it takes some of the pressure off of us. And two, if you have one bad 1-minute conversation, then you can get a redo and have another one
Mhm.
minute conversation.
Absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time for this episode. So if you do have questions, please write them in. You can send it directly to us. Or we will also have the information that can be sent directly to Kayla. We'll have information for folks to be able to contact you directly if they need to, as well through your counseling service. But yeah, let's get some questions, and we'll get some of those answered, and then we can come back for different stages. But in the meantime, I definitely recommend as well to get the Shameless Parenting book. Again, it's everything you need to raise shame-free, confident kids and heal your own shame too. So thank you so much, Kayla, for joining us today, and looking forward to more opportunities to chat about this with you.
Do we have 1 minute for me to share one stat?
Yes.
Only 18 states require medically accurate sex education in their school systems.
Wow.
Only 18 require medically accurate because it's a state level decision. And so don't rely on your school system to be giving your kid all the information that you feel is important.
Okay.
Good point.
Ugh. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Please listen in. We will have more for sure.
Thanks for putting up with the bad jokes too.
Oh, well, she'll get used to you.
Thank you
Uh,
so much.
Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by the Idaho Children's Trust Fund.